Am I audible to everyone? Am I audible? Okay, okay. Right. More than 50% of students need to join. Still, the time is 9:02 a.m. See, waiting for the people, even though the time is over, is somehow difficult. Right. So let us start our today's session. In the last class, we have discussed some of the examples of MapReduce programs, uh, how to write the MapReduce program to solve a particular problem. So there we have identified, with the help of 3 different codes, we can solve the any problem. So majorly in that, the driver code, the mapper logic, and the reducer logic. So this all together represents the map-reduce paradigm programming model. With that, we can solve any problem in Hadoop environment, right? So these are the things which we have discussed in the previous class. Now, a small assignment to you for the next session. First, we will discuss that assignment, and then we'll move to the next one. So here is another example which you are supposed to be try at your own. Okay, so this is the data which is maintained by a telecom company. So what they are maintaining is this is the from phone number, and to phone number. That means to whom you make a call, and call start time and call end time. Okay, at last they are maintain STD flag. That means here the complete data of a telecom organization available with the call data. This is called as call data. So what it contains: from phone number from where the call has initiated, and to phone number to whom they made a call, and what will be the starting time and what will be the ending time, and status flag. Okay, here status sorry, not status flag, STD flag. What is the meaning of this STD flag is, if is set to 1, it indicates that it is a STD call. That means you make a call to other than your state, right? And if it is 0, it will be represented as a local call. Local call means within the state only. Okay, so in such a way, the STD data will be represented with 1, and local data will be represented with 0. So this is the information that we have. Okay, so from this, what we have to do is, we need to find out and we need to display the phone numbers of the customers, those who made an STD call more than 60 minutes. More than 60 minutes. The time duration should be more than 60 minutes. Of course, even though it is STD call, if the duration is less than 60, you need not be considered. You need to consider only the call duration is greater than 60 minutes of STD call. How do you identify whether the call is STD call or not? Based on the STD flag. If it is 1, then you can consider it as a STD call. And what you are supposed to do, you need to subtract the time, call and time minus call start time. If it is greater than 60, you can display the phone number from which the call has initiated, right? So like that, you are supposed to produce the output. Okay, once again I'll repeat the same. We have telephone data, telephone company data, which contains from phone number to phone number, call start time, call end time, and STD flag. STD flag is used to represent whether it is STD call or not. If it is set to 1, it indicates that it is an STD call. If it is 0, it is local. So you need to display the phone numbers, those who make more than 60 minutes of the call. Okay, so that is the output which we are supposed to be produced, right? So this is the assignment for you. You just think about this data. You can take your own data, like from phone number and all. Otherwise, I will share it in your group. No problem. This particular part will be, I will share it in your group. You just think about it and try to develop the code for it. So what you are supposed to do, you need to write the mapper logic, reducer logic, and driver code for this application. Okay, so final output what we are expecting, phone number followed by the duration, and only we need to display the phone numbers and duration for the STD calls only. STD calls will be decided based on the, whether it is STD call or not, will be decided based on the STD flag information which is available in the input data. So this is the assignment for you. You just develop the code for it, right? So that is about mapper logic, reducer logic, driver code. We have discussed 3-4 examples how to develop this mapper codes, reducer codes, and driver codes for an application, right? So that is about how to write basic map reduce programs. Once we look at the syllabus, where we are and whether we have covered all the things or not. So this is the syllabus of the third unit. Writing map reduce programs. First we need to analyze weather data set, understanding Hadoop API for the map reduce framework old and new, and basic programs of Hadoop reduce, map reduce, that is how to write the driver code, mapper code, reducer code, record reader, combiner, and partitioner. Hope we all discuss all these topics without any deviation, right? So there ends your syllabus for the first mid examination. Now let us review whatever we learned in Unit 1, that is fundamental data structures that are used in Hadoop MapReduce programming model. So up to now what we have used here itself is only iterators we have used, and generic classes, generic methods as of now we have used, and as well as wrapper classes also. So these are the concepts which we have utilized while writing MapReduce programs. Okay, so now let us quickly review what we learned in Unit 1. Okay, for that, right. So first unit, just it is so my screen is visible to everyone. Is it visible or not? Okay, right. So once again, quickly review what we have learned in Unit 1, that is Big Data Analytics. So in that, what we have learned is what is big data and what is the various sources from where the huge amount of data is going to be generated. That means sources of data and characteristics of big data, and some of the example areas where we are using big data. So these things we have covered in the first unit, and then we just migrated to collections in Java. What are the various collections? That means collection framework in Java, So what are the various classes and interfaces that are available in the collections of framework? Okay, so those things we have discussed in the first unit. Now quickly revise one by one. So first of all, what is big data, right? So before going to discuss about big data, one should understand what is the data. A data means the quantities, characters or symbols on which operations are performed by a computer, right? Once an operation is performed on a data, the output is called as information. The output is called as information. That is the difference between data and information. Okay, so the data is the raw quantity on which if you perform certain operations, you can produce the information. Okay, so usually this data will be stored in a and transmitted in the traditional computer systems, right? So you can observe it may be stored and transmitted in the form of electrical signals and recorded on magnetic, optical or mechanical recording media, right? So this data may be stored at different places. The data is also be classified into different categories, right? So for example, if you are talking about numbers, this is one kind of data. Text, it is another kind of data, like signals, right? So there are different kinds of data based on your operations. You can classify it. So now, what exactly that's the big data? What is the definition for it? As far as concerned with me, what I am suggesting you is you just think the big data means the data which we cannot accommodate in a single system is called as big data, right? Because when you try to keep it in a system, if you are unable to hold it, what it means, it becomes big for that particular data. Okay, as far as concerned with the storage area which you have. So you can simply say like that, the data which we cannot accommodate in a single node is called as big data. For Wikipedia and all other what they are given information, I mean definition for the big data is the term for a collection of data sets so large and complex that it becomes difficult to process using on-hand database management tools or traditional database or data processing applications, right? So simply what they can express their idea regarding big data is what it is a huge amount of data which we cannot accommodate in our known places of the storage area. Known, why I'm calling it known places of the storage area means, so traditional database, because you are all expertise in writing DBMS queries, creating tables, storing data into the tables, all these things you are all aware of it. So that is the reason why I'm calling it as a known storage area, right? And here a lot of challenges that need to be addressed. One is, how do we capture, how do we curate storage area, search, sharing, transfer, and analysis, and visualization? These are the challenges that included in the huge volume of data. Suppose if it is less amount of data, anyway you can perform all these operations with the help of single query. But when you are talking about huge volume of data, okay, how do we extract that huge? Because as far as concerned with your system, you have less computing capabilities. So with that capabilities, how you are able to extract the data and how you are able to store it and how you are able to process it and how you are able to visualize it with the available configurations of the systems. So this is a big challenge, right? So a big data is also data, but with a huge in size. It is also a data with a huge size. Huge size data is called as big data. So big data is a term used to describe the collection of data that is huge in volume and yet growing exponentially with time. Growing exponentially with time, because it was not created only once. It is a continuous process. Continuously, it exponentially growing by the time. With the time, the data size is going to be increased. So in short, such data is so large and complex that no one of the traditional data management tools are able to store it or process it efficiently. Especially in the case of unstructured data and semi-structured data, it is very difficult for us by using traditional database management systems because they follow the structured data. They can keep only the structured information, right? So when we try to handle other than that kind of information, it is very difficult for us handling such kind of data using traditional data management tools. So this is about what exactly the big data. Now let us observe the sources of the big data. These are the sum of the sources. Don't treat that this is only the way which we can get big data, right? So internal data sources and external data sources. Internal data sources in the sense, whenever if you're talking about multinational companies, they are following enterprise resource model, corporate ERP modules. So from that, they will generate something, big data while doing their operations, right? Internal documents, sensors and controllers in an industry, in-house call centers, okay, and website logs. So these are the some of the sources from where the huge amount of data is going to be generated as far as concerned with an organization, big organization. Don't think that it's a small company may not have all these fields. Okay, so when you're talking about multinational company whose branches are located throughout the globe, in that case, you might have found this kind of data which is going to be generated in a time interval. And when coming to the external data sources, as you are all familiar with using social media, and as we have discussed in the first, how much of data is going to be generated through social media in a day, how many videos are going to be uploaded, text is going to be uploaded, okay, videos, audios. So these all things leads to generation of huge volume of data. So on official statistics, weather forecasting, publicly available data sets for machine learning. So these are all the some of the other areas where the data is going to be generated. Generated in the sense from all the areas it is going to be generated. But here our intention is wherever the huge amount of data is going to be generated, that we consider the source of the data generation. So these are the some of the sources from where we'll get the big data. Now, these are the some of the example areas. It was not restricted only to these four, which I have specified here itself. It was expanded to many other areas, especially in medical, uh, as I told you in the previous classes. Okay, so today we are using our computational capacities to identify the change in the genomes of COVID-19, right? So how it was changed. And yesterday, in the newspaper, you might have observed that one kind of virus is spread almost 70% in the world, A to A. The type of that virus is A to A. Like that, people have identified different changes in the genome of the COVID-19. Okay, and most of the world is spreading with the only one kind of virus. Right, that is the conclusion as of now. But still, a lot of research is going on it. Okay, so in that case, they were collected the data throughout the world and they were analyzed the transition position of the genome, and based on that, they will try to identify what kind of virus it is going to be affected and what way it was changed. And all these things, there are a lot of things that are need to be analyzed, right? Okay, so in such a way, like that, there are several areas are also be there. Just for better understanding, only here I was mentioned only four areas, but it was not restricted to these four only. It was expanded to so many other areas. And today, most of the organizations, they are interested to adopt data scientists for analyzing their data. So it is the one of the emerging area where you will have very bright future if you will become a good data scientist, right? And now the first one is customer analytics. Customer analytics. Most of the e-commerce websites are running based on these kind of customer analytics. The customer analytics not only will help for the organization, it will also help for the customer itself. For example, you have searched for a particular item in today in Flipkart, right? You have searched so many products which is related to, for example, pulse oximeter. Okay, so there when you type pulse oximeter in e-commerce website like Flipkart, it will display certain results, right? You may review, you may customer may have different opinions. One may be consider the price. Someone is wants the particular product with less than 1,000 rupees or 2,000 rupees, like that. That is one kind of requirement. Somebody may look at the ratings given by the previously acquired people, okay, and somebody looking for the features that are differ with one model and another model, like that. Each and every user may have different criterion for selecting a product, right? So you have revised all the models that you have displayed when you type pulse oximeter in the Flipkart search process. Okay, next time after 2 days, after 3 days, if you revisit the same site, what it displays? So the suggested products for you. In that, you might have observed that pulse oximeter, how it is going to be generated, how it will be find out that is the product which is which you may require, like that, in such a way how it is going to be identified. So because of your previous search history, it is going to be analyzed. So you can think, are you only the one of the customer of the Flipkart? No. In a day, at this particular moment, so many number of people are searching for different products in the Flipkart. So how the Flipkart is going to do the analysis and how it is going to be generate the suggestions and how they are going to be transmit to your special account in the sense your account. So you can think in such a way. Okay, so it is also helpful for the customer. Sometimes they can easily search for the desired project. So here you can observe that to create 360-degree customer view, companies need to collect, store, and analyze the plethora of data. The more data sources they use, the more complete picture they will get. Okay, so if they capture the information from all the directions, so that it will help them to get a better idea, and so that based on that they will do further process. So another important here, one of the thing that I was observed is long back when I tried to book a plane ticket. Okay, so in that case, I know that the scheduled departure time. Say for example, I want to book a plane ticket on October 17th, for example. For that, I want to go to Hyderabad to Delhi. I want to book a plane from Hyderabad to Delhi. See, in that case, what happens is, I was searching for the flights on that day, the timings and all, prices and all. Okay, so I found that one of the plane, suppose say for example, SpaceJet. SpaceJet is it is approximately 2,000 rupees as of now the price. Okay, I just hold it for a moment and I just think that okay, better to book it in tomorrow or day after tomorrow. We'll see later. Like that, I assumed that, and I don't book the ticket today, right? After 2 days, if I search for the same flight, probably the price may be increased. In the similar way, if you ask some of your friends to search for the same flight and try to book the ticket, whenever if you observe the low price, automatically it becomes high. That means what they understood is, so many people are looking to book a ticket in the same plane, so we need to increase the flight charges. So how they collect it? Yes, based on the search information, right? So that I was practically experienced with that. Just today, I looked at the rate, and tomorrow if I try to book, additionally, I'm supposed to pay 560 rupees. There is no other criteria. So just for time being, I just leave it and I'll book it on the next day. I paid 560 rupees as an extra amount, right? So like that, why I'm telling you this particular example is, so in such a way, based on if you get the information regarding all the customers in all the directions, it gives new insights of the behavior of the customers, so that you can design your new business idea, so that it will help you for the development of your business, right? So these are the 5 areas from where a organization can get the data from the customers. So demographic data, that means the customer is a woman, 35 years old, like has 2 children, the personal data regarding the customer, right? Because based on that, they will show you the products which are most relevant to you, right? And transactional data means which you have purchased, okay, each and every time, what are the things, the products that you have purchased. So that is also another important aspect, because majority of the people have purchased this product. What happens in that case? Probably they may increase the price, or they may give some of the products which are less purchased. So definitely they'll put some offer on it, so that they'll expect to clear the products, right? So web behavior of the data, that means sometimes you may give some comments, like when you are reviewing a product details in an e-commerce website, there the worst product, it is an very good product, it is worth for every penny, like that you might have observed some comments given by the users, right? So that is also an important aspect, okay? And data from the customers created tests, so comments about the company that is woman lives on the internet, all right? Sometimes we are giving about comments in the social media. So these all things, these all information will give a complete picture to the company about the customers, what they're feeling regarding the products of this particular company, so they can get it, right? Similarly, industrial analytics. So to avoid expensive downtimes that affect all the related process, manufacturers can use sensor data to foster proactive maintenance. So that means if we are talking about underground gas pipeline. So where what usually we'll do, we'll place some sensors to keep track of the temperature. Okay, whenever if the temperature is abnormally changed, immediately the sensors will pass certain information to you, so that you'll become alert, right? Otherwise, what happens, because underground pipeline, there is no human supervision for it. It is not possible to supervise by a human being. So that is the reason we'll place some sensors on it, right? So based on this sensors data, based on the analysis of the sensors data, we can prevent from the failures, right? So not only that example area, there are so many other areas where we are using the sensor based applications, and by analyzing those sensor data, we are able to prevent some failures in so many places, right? And business process analytics. Companies also use big data analytics to monitor the performance of their remote employees. For example, if you are talking about a logistics company, okay, there suppose, for example, Navata Transport Corporation, right? There are so many vehicles are transmitted from one place to another place, and the company has completely tracking the drivers and all, what way they are behaving, and how much time they took to reach the destination, whether they are following using based on GPS system. They will try to track all these things, right? Based on that, they will try to identify the efficiency, because whatever the things that they have, suppose for example, if one driver took 1 day to reach from Vijayawada to Bangalore, another driver will reach 10 hours from Vijayawada to Bangalore. Another driver took 11 hours to reach. So based on these data, what they suggest, what they capture it, they need to define a pattern. Okay, always when you start from Vijayawada to Bangalore, you are supposed to reach at this much of time, 11 hours. By calculating the average time, they will fix the timings, right? So in such a way, based on this data which they capture, will help them to define new patterns. Based on that, they can define their business process, right? So similarly, analytics for fraud detection. So So usually in our day-to-day life, recently what we observe is we got so many messages from the banks, like bank never ask you to share a PIN and email ID, never ask to change email ID, phone number, like that. They will continuously sending messages to make customers are aware of the frauds, right? So this is also uh, by analyzing the user details, it is also possible to avoid the fraud detection. Avoid the fraud by detecting certain behavior of the users. So these are the some of the examples areas where we are using big data. Now let us focus on the characteristics of big data. So there are three major characteristics are initially developed. Later on, people have added some other characteristics to the big data. Okay, now it is almost 6 V's. Initially, it was started at 3 V's. Now it becomes 6 V's. It is not restricted to 6 only. You may define your own V so that it will become 7, right? So it depends on, based on the data which you have observed, you may define your own characteristic of the big data. So in that, the first one is volume. As we have discussed, the data is growing exponentially by time. Enormous size of the data is going to be generated on every day, right? So based on the size, whenever if the size gets increased, it is difficult to accommodate and it is difficult to process, right? So that is the reason volume becomes a characteristics of the big data. And velocity, time, for every day, for every minute, for every second, this much of data is going to be generated, that much of data is going to be generated, right? So whenever, if the time, suppose in a 1 year, it generates 1 TB of data. Okay, we'll plan it and we'll try to accommodate it and we'll try to analyze by arranging the resources which are essential for the analyzing the data. But every second, this second it is going to be generated 10 TB of data, next second it may be generated 100 TB of data. How you are able to plan for the storage area and how you are able to plan for the analyzation process? You don't have time. So what we have to do? Whether we leave it? So that is another important characteristic of velocity. And variety. Variety in the sense, the heterogeneous source. That means some of the data may be in one format and some of the data may be in another format. Say for example, video data, it is one format. Audio data, it is another format. Text, it is another format. Like that, there are different RFID cards when you are scanning, or barcode scanners. These are all produces different types of data. So how do we handle these kind of heterogeneous data? So that is what we are calling it as a variety. Variability. Variability in the sense, the consistency. There is a lot of difference that exists between the same data by time to time, right? So a lot of inconsistency which can be shown by the data at times. So these are the some of the characteristics of big data. So the veracity. Okay. So there are some other characteristics will also be defined in future. We will discuss while discussing some other examples in some other areas. Okay. There we will add some more V's to these 4 V's, right? Now let us move to the collections in Java. So in that, the first one is linked list. So linked list is a linear data structure in which each element of the list contains a pointer which points to the next element in the list. So each node contains 2 parts. One is for holding the data and another one is for pointer which points to the next node. That means which contains the address of the next node. Okay. So we can perform various operations on it. We can create the list. We can store. We can insert the element. We can delete. We can search for an element. Like that, we can perform various operations. Okay. And on the list. Okay. Here another important point is always the first node is called as head node and the last node is called as tail node. So the tail node next pointer always points to the null. So with that, we can identify that is the end of the element. Always the last node pointer points to the null. So With that, we can understand the end of the list. So why do we need a linked list? Okay, so there are several data structures are available with a similar kind of operations. Still, why we require linked list? So array is a linear data structure which is also stores the information in a linear fashion. Even though if it is available, why we require linked list? So before going to discuss about the importance of linked list, one should understand the limitations of the arrays, right? So always the size of the array should be fixed. So while declaring the array, you need to fix the size of that array, how many elements which you want to store it. Okay. During runtime, if you want to increase or if you want to add more number of elements than the specified size, it is not possible. It leads to errors. Sometimes your compiler may accept the elements, but while displaying, it will display only the elements which are the size of that array only. Suppose if you declare the array size as 10, if you enter 12 elements, probably while inserting the elements, it may take, but while displaying, it will display only the first 10 elements, right? And all these elements are stored in contiguous memory locations. That means if you know the first starting address of that array, you are able to retrieve the elements, or you are able to traverse from one element to another element in the array. That means all the elements are stored at side by side memory locations, right? So that inserting and deleting in an array is a performance wise expensive. That means when you want to insert an element at a specified position, what you have to do, you need to vacate that place by shifting the elements from that place to the end of the list to the right. We need to shift one element to the right, like that we'll shift all the elements from the place where you want to insert, so that we'll make the empty place for the element which you want to insert. So similarly deletion also, so it takes a lot of time for the shifting the elements while inserting from left to right, whereas for deleting right to left. Right. So these are the some of the limitations that we observed in array, even though it is linear data structure. So to overcome all these problems, people have developed another mechanism is called as linked list. Okay, how these limitations are handled by the linked lists is, it is not fixed in size. You can continuously add any number of elements which you want to add. And another important point is, the elements in the linked list need not store at a contiguous memory locations. They may be stored at different locations. So you can directly go to that location and you can delete the element, and you can add a new element and directly you can link it to the existing list. So both insertion and deletion are very less expensive tasks in the linked list when compared to the arrays, right? So these are the how this is going to be overcome the limitations of the arrays. When coming to the drawbacks of the linked list, here also some of the drawbacks are there. The random access is not allowed. You cannot access the element. Suppose, say for example, in your list contains 10 elements. If you want to access 7th element, you cannot directly access it. But whereas in the array, A of 6 is the location for the 7th element. So you can directly access it in the array. But here it is not possible, because always you need to start from the beginning of the list. You need to traverse one after another until you reach the required position. Then only you are able to access that element. You cannot directly go to the location where the 7th element is present in the linked list. So that is called as random access is not allowed. And extra memory space for pointer is required with each element of the list. Right? In the array, we'll have we require the memory space to hold the element only. But whereas in the linked list, you need to have two things. One is for holding the element and another one is for holding the pointer. So this is the additional space required for each and every node in the linked list, right? So these are some of the drawbacks which we have identified in the linked list, right? And now then so now let us see the collections in Java. That means other things that are available in the collections framework, right? So a collection groups together elements and allow them to be retrieved later. Just collection framework, nothing but just it allowing you to group of things or group of objects together as a single unit, right? So Java collections can achieve all the operations that you perform on the data, such as searching, collect, sorting, insertion, manipulation, and deletion, right? Whatever the operations that you can perform on the group of things, all the operations are allowed in the collections. Okay, and Java collection means a single unit of objects. So Java collection framework provides many interfaces: set, list, queues, dequeues, okay, and classes, array list. So now you can observe the hierarchy of collection framework. Here, the blue color rectangle boxes represents the interfaces, whereas green color rectangle boxes represents the classes. These are the classes and interfaces that are available in the collections framework. In that, list, queue, set, dequeue, sorted list, collection, and iterable is the base for all the, because we need to, whenever if you have a collection means you need to iterate, you need to be traverse right from the beginning to end. So for that reason, all this becomes the sub of this particular iterable interface, right? So here the blue color represents the interfaces. So here the classes are stacks, vectors, linked list, array list, priority queues, array dequeues, tree set, hash set, and linked set, right? Maps are not present in this collections framework, but still they can be implemented with the help of tree set, linked set, and hash set. Okay, so these are the three different representations of set and as well as map. Okay, both of them are meant for representing a collection. Set is also representing collection, a collection of elements, whereas map is representing a collection of key value mappings, which is used for key value mapping. Now, as you can understand, you know that stack, because you are familiar with the data structures. There you studied about the stack. It is last in, first out data structure. Okay, that means whatever the element which was recently inserted into the stack will be popped first, or that means will be deleted first, right? So this stack has one end for both insertion and deletion. Okay, so the insertion operation is called as push operation, and the deletion operation is called as pop operation, right? So both insertions and deletions should be made at one end only, right? So it is also, the class is available in the collections framework for the stack implementation, right? So these are the some of the methods which we can perform with the stack. Empty, peek. Peek is used to display the element which is present in the top of the stack without removing it. Just if you want to display the top element, you can use the peek. E stands for return type, that is element, right? So E pop is meant for deleting an element. So how do we delete? Always you delete the element which is present in the top position, right? So difference between peek and pop removes the element, whereas peek just simply displays it without removing it, right? Like push and search, these are the some of the operations that we can perform on the stacks. Similarly, queue is also a linear data structure. Both insertions and deletions are made at two different ends. Okay, insertions are made from the rear and the deletions are made from the front end. Okay, and the queues can be implemented using two different classes. One is linked list and another one is priority queues, right? So linked list implementation, Q1 is equals to new linked list, and priority queue implementation, Q2 is equals to new priority queue. By using any one of these approach, you can define the queues, right? So these are the methods which we are used in the queue interface. This is the method for addition. Element is also just similar to the addition method. Okay, and So just not addition method, just it returns the top element, head element. Head element in the sense, whatever the element which is present in the first position in the queue. First position in the queue. Right? Offer method. This is same as add method. And remove, poll, peek. So these are the different methods which we are used in the queue interfaces. Right? So by using these methods, we can perform various operations on the collection of queue. Okay. And set interface. A set is also a collection that cannot contain duplicate values. Here the restriction is, even though if you enter the duplicate value, as we have observed while executing the programs on set, when you try to execute, enter duplicate values, it was accepted, but while displaying the elements, it won't be displayed. Right? So that means it won't allow you to insert the duplicate elements. Okay. The set interface contains only methods inherited from collection and adds the restriction that duplicate elements are prohibited. Duplicate elements are prohibited. Okay. So the Java platform contains three general purpose set implementations. One is hash set, tree set, and linked hash set. So hash set is simply implementation of the set without considering the order. Okay. So the objects cannot be created, since set is an interface, objects cannot be created of the type set. We always need a class which extends the list in order to create an object. So that's why we need to implement it in three different ways. Similarly, linked list also, right? So hash set, tree set, and linked hash set. Hash set means directly we'll implement the set implementation, but there is no order in the elements which are present in it. If you want order, you will go with either any one of this approach, right? So linked hash set, what it follows is whatever the order that they inserted, okay, simply it follows that mechanism. That means all the elements are sorted based on their insertion order, right? If you want such kind of, if your requirement is such kind of thing, then you go with the linked hash set representation of implementation of set class, set interface. Whereas a tree set, it follows the binary search mechanism. It sorts the elements based on their values rather than their order, inserting order. The elements will be sorted based on their values. So that means it follows the binary search mechanism, binary search tree mechanism, where the left child should be less than the root node and right child should be greater than the root node. By using that mechanism, it will be implemented. So depends upon your requirement, you can implement the set in any of these three implementations, right? And these are some of the methods which we can use. We remove all, we can insert all, iterator. Iterator means just which is used for accessing the elements one by one from the collection. So some of the methods which we are used in the set interface. Similarly, the map. The map is not specified in the collections framework, but still it can be implemented as the way the set is implemented. That means using hash set, linked hash set. So by using three different mechanisms, we can implement the map, which is used for mapping an object from the key value phase, making an object that maps keys to the values. So some of the example areas where we are using mappings are a map of zip codes and cities, map of error codes and their descriptions. Like that, there are several areas where we are using this map interface, right? So that is about something about the quick review of the contents which we have discussed in the Unit 1. So remaining things which we will discuss in the next class. So if you have any queries regarding the Unit 1, you can ask now. If you have any doubts regarding the topics which we discussed in the Unit 1, you can ask, no issue. So today's absentees are E1, G2, H4 and I1. Any queries? Any queries? So all of you should submit your all subject assignments before Saturday. The scanned copies need to send to your concerned faculty mail IDs, and you just keep the hard copies with you. Whenever the college reopens, you are supposed to submit it, right? So hope this is clear to everybody. So we will discuss the remaining things in the next class. So now I will end the session. Thank you.